for me, the biggest challenge and most fun always is to take super complex, hard to understand topics and make them understandable. And that really is important for everything that I do. So this project, this ProX project, to me still was the most fun project I've ever done in my entire life because it was the hardest nut to crack. It was such a hard nut to crack, and the challenge couldn't be bigger than to change the operational system of an entire globally operating company. It can't be any harder.
Welcome to the New Process Podcast. Learn all the tools, methods, and best practices combined with people, emotions, and a human-centric mindset to rethink your process and push it to the next level. And here is your host, Mirko Kloppenberg.
Yeah, welcome to episode 11 of the New Process Podcast. Today I'm speaking with Ole Tillmann about how to pitch your process. Ole is strategic brand and communication consultant, executive coach, and founder of Peak Creative Leadership. He's based in Berlin, and he's also working as startup coach and consultant for accelerators like APX, the startup accelerator of Axel Springer and Porsche. He is author of the book Beyond the Obvious, and for sure we are also going to talk about that as well. And maybe you also know Ole as an actor or moderator. And by the way, beginning of the 2000s, he was host of the music TV show Top of the Pops. I met Ole when he was working as a consultant for Lufthansa Technik, and we've been working on several projects together, which has been always very inspiring for me. And I learned so much from Ole that I thought it might be great to have him at the New Process Podcast as well. Just to give you an outlook of what is coming up, besides a lot of insights on Ole's work, you will learn about the secret ingredients of a perfect pitch and how to create one. You will learn how to pitch your process to top management, as well as how to inspire employees for processes. Yeah, there is a big case we are providing with a lot of insights into. And finally, you can also learn how to learn more about how to create a perfect presentation, which is quite useful at several occasions, I would say, within business. So, enjoy the episode with Ole Tillmann.
And now, let's start to rethink processes.
Yeah. Ole, welcome to the New Process Podcast. It's great to have you here. As I already said, we did some really exciting projects together and I learned so much from you. So I'm happy to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Mirko. Happy to be here.
Yeah, great. So let's dive right into it and start with a check-in. And the first question I always ask my guest here is, what do you prefer in an aircraft, aisle or window seat?
Aisle seat usually, because it's easier for me to get in and to get out. And also, I'm very happy to have my hands very early at the luggage. So that's why I usually want to sit aisle.
That's very good. And is there a favorite airport that you have?
Actually, yeah, I mean, I like Frankfurt a lot. I like Munich a lot. These are, I mean, we are spoiled with airports, I think, right? And we are spoiled that we are allowed to just take the plane with our German passport and then fly to wherever we want to. This is why I usually don't have too many expectations to airports. It's important for me to get to the lounge, the business lounge, if possible. Spend some time there, get to the plane and get off, right? So that's usually what I like. I mean, I've been to Tokyo, which has been amazing. I've been to Moscow, to Istanbul. We've been to China. There are so many international airports that are quite also intimidating just by its sheer size. But I wouldn't say I have one favorite one. I don't know. No.
Okay, no problem. So then let's get closer to the topic of process here. Looking back, what was the best process you have ever experienced?
Actually, I think Americans are really process heroes, especially in the entertainment world. And I remember being at Universal Studios at a theme park couple of years ago. And I've been at the Minion ride, the tiny, the yellow comic characters. And the idea of the Minion ride is that you, together with 50 other people, stage by stage are transformed into a minion. So you stand in front of the building, and you step into the first room, the door closes behind you, and you stand there, and then the floor starts shaking, or a crazy scientist, an actor as a crazy scientist comes out, and some fog, and then they talk to you, and they help you to transform step by step. At the end, you get out, and you are a minion. And I thought this process design was so amazing thought through, because it allows you to experience entertainment at scale. And so all the actors who've been there, I mean, they sometimes only had a couple of lines, but they must produce them and reproduce them over and over and over again. And still, it needs to look fresh, right? Still, it needs to appear to the audience as if they have said their sentence for the first time. And this, to me, was very well designed processes they had at hand there.
Okay, yeah, that's super cool. Thanks for these insights. And how would you describe your personal relationship to processes? So how did you get to know processes?
Yeah, I think I discovered my love for processes early on as an actor. Because as an actor, if you stand in front of a camera, especially in television, you have to sometimes over and over shoot the same scene again. Sometimes from different angles, sometimes you have a mistake, then you have to redo it. And you get very used to going over and over through processes. So that was the first time I really got aware of that. And then when I made my acting and acting coaching education, I've been trained in an American storytelling system for actors, which is a step-by-step process for an actor to build up their relationship with the role they want to play, and then really immerse, and then at the end become the role. And this process really hit home to me. I thought this is so professional if you do it like this. And even creativity. I mean, acting is all about creativity, and processes do not exclude each other. At the end, they're complementary, right? So, and this is where I fell in love with processes. And then I understood also with my topic of presentation design, communication of innovative ideas, I need to build a repeatable system. And a repeatable system, a method, a methodology with a repeatable outcome, right? Quality outcome is only possible if you have a good process design. So, and this was very clear to me. I need to build something like that. That's also why I've written my book, Agile Presentation Design, a step-by-step guide to more impactful presentations, right? It's a method. I developed that method. And I know when both of us, when we started to work together, Mirko, at Lufthansa Technik, it was very interesting because you've invited me to work with all your colleagues to develop their pitching skills of innovative ideas. And I came with a process. And it was super smooth. So the integration was super smooth. And I never knew why that was until we started to work on the process of ProX. And I understood, because Lufthansa Technik is all about processes. Now I come as an external consultant with another process. And it integrates so smoothly because everyone speaks the language of processes. And this is where I really first understood the real importance of neat processes, where I really understood, wow, in the business world, if you don't have your processes together, you cannot produce reliable outcomes.
Okay, yeah, that's super cool. So now you are working as a strategic brand and a communication consultant. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that, what you're doing there?
Sure. So one example would be a newly established brand, let's say a venture capital firm. So I work a lot in the startup ecosystem. So these are my natural clients. A venture capital firm approaches me and says, hey, we're newly set up fund. we are looking for branding. Could you help us with this? And so what I do is an extensive research phase. I try to understand the brand. I try to understand the target group, competition, and all these kind of things. And then from there, I develop a narrative. And this narrative then is displayed in the brand itself, in the logo, in the website, and all the other communication materials. So this is one part. And I love to work on this because I'm super curious and I love to tell stories and I love to do it with design. Then another use case I would have is that VCs again or startups approach me to work with startups on their equity story in a preparation for their funding and investors' communication. So this is what I do on a regular basis. I do this for APX, which is the accelerator program of Axel Springer and Porsche. Do it since more than 8 years for them, also for the previous program. And then I prepare CEOs from younger companies, scale-ups for their internal but also external communication. Internal, that would be I support them with their all-hands meetings and how would they communicate effectively throughout the entire organization. I'm a sparrings partner here. I really help them to develop their concepts and then also support them how they get them communicated through the entire organization, but also with the external communication, meaning for product, keynotes, and so on. And then I work as a creative consultant or creative producer supporting, working on the entire script, on the visuals, and then also as a director when it comes to inscenating everything on stage. This is what I do against the backdrop of my own career as an actor and as a moderator in television.
Yeah, that's super cool. And I guess you have developed hundreds of pitch presentations when consulting startups and other corporates there. Can you tell us what are the secret ingredients of a perfect pitch?
Yeah, I think the first thing that everyone needs to have at hand is a very graspable product vision at the beginning. And this is what most startups fail doing correctly. They start to talk about what they do. They talk about their impact, but they not really talk about the product. And as an investor, you must understand right from the first sentence onwards what the product or what the startup is all about, right? So product vision at the beginning is very important, and you need to explain the big picture. Why is it important? Why now? Who's your protagonist? So who's your user? What's the user experience? And then visualize everything that you do, right? So that's also very important. The most successful fundraisers I saw, they visualized everything they did with computer-generated images, right? If you look at, for example, the startup Lilium, it's for me a best practice. They were able to raise a lot of money even before they had their first flying prototype, because they were able to show their product vision, like let's say the Lilium jet in front of the Copacabana or New York. And we understood, okay, this is how it looks like, or the heliport or whatever was necessary to understand what they do. So having the product vision is very, very important. And that's to me always the first part. And then the rest, all the business metrics, they can only be understood once I've understood the value that the product creates, and I need to understand the customer and also the insights that the startup had, why they came to their solution, and the inciting incident where the founder understood, this is a problem and I need to solve it, and I can solve it because of my background, because I have a very special industry insight. And if you weave all these modules together into a compelling narrative at the beginning, then you not only grasp the audience's attention, but you also hold it and you make it a meaningful experience for them to listen. So what I usually say is you need to have such a structured, clear narrative that the audience is not forced to think, but only to experience the meaning of your narrative.
Okay, so how do I get there? How does the process look like of creating that?
Yeah, the creative process usually always follows the same patterns. And that's also very interesting once you've understood that. At the beginning, every creative process is super messy. And you need to allow yourself to step into that, what is called the divergent phase of the creative process. So you open up, you generate as many ideas as possible, crazy ideas maybe that would never find themselves in the final product, but you would allow yourself at the beginning to just explore and to stay open and generate and generate and generate. And then only once you have reached a good height or depth in your creative process, then you start boiling it down in the so-called convergent phase. And you start to exclude ideas, you start to prioritize, and you create a first rapid prototype. And then if you have that rapid prototype, and I usually use Post-it notes, for example, or just some sketches on the whiteboard, if you have this prototype at hand, and it's very important to start every creative process opening up and then closing it down so that you also have a feeling of accomplishment. And then you have that first prototype at hand, and then you let go. And that's very counterintuitive, but it's very important. So you, let's say, create a first storyboard, you have it on the whiteboard, and then you let go, you do something entirely different. Next task, you go for a walk or whatever it is. And then what your mind does subconsciously is it consolidates all your thinking. And then you might get inspired by other things that you see or discussions that you have with others. And then because you have that storyboard, you have a container in which you can put all the inspiration that you have alongside. Later, you're at the storyboard again, or if you have a digital copy of it, you can just integrate it there. And then you might have experienced it yourself, Mirko, if you have written a text and you sleep a good night, and then next day you look at the text again, you see all the things that you would like to change, right? Also, processing information whilst you're sleeping is very important. It's a very important part of the process. And then you look at all the stuff with a fresh eye, and then you start rearranging and shaping and so on and so forth. But again, you open up from here, so you go into another divergent phase, and then you go back into convergent phase, and then you get even closer and closer to the gist of your idea until you then can release your product. So I think pitch design or communication design is very much like product design. And if you understand that you need to have breaks in between, you understand that you need to start very early, let's say a couple of weeks or sometimes a month before an important presentation. And then to me, everything that you do is a presentation, everything in business life, right? Whenever you want to communicate something with someone, then you need to have a presentation for that. So it doesn't matter if it's a marketing strategy, if it's a pitch, if it's just some instructions or whatever it is. So yeah, this is the process. So you come from very messy at the beginning to very clear and structured at the end. And the idea is to come from chaos to order. And you fight against reality to get your thinking into that clear and concise storyline.
That's cool. I wasn't aware that sleeping could be part of a professional process design. And that's super cool. I know that taking a shower, me personally, often helps to sort out what's in my mind and come up with cool ideas. But sleeping, that's cool. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, you should try to get as many sleep circles in between the first draft of your thinking and the final result. That's really very important.
Okay, cool. That reminds me of a call I had yesterday with a customer of mine where we thought about setting up a workshop to inspire top management for processes. And in the end, I said, I think I need a night to think about what to do there. And now, as you are here, what would be your recommendation for us to approach the top management, how to proceed in pitching process management to top management?
So, okay, first of all, we have to understand if someone is a top executive, top management, usually they like decision making, right? Usually they're very action oriented. And as with every good story, you need to always communicate receiver-oriented, right? So it's not so much about your story that you share, even if that's counterintuitive, but it's more about the reflections and connotations your audience has with regards to what you're saying. So you try to own that process in your audience's mind. And if you know that there is a person who's very action oriented, likes decision making, usually this is the counterside to processes, right? Because processes are very detailed. They are very much focusing on the process and not only on the outcome. So, but for decision making, outcomes and options are very important. So what I would recommend to do is design the story from the perspective of the listener, think of their frameworks and mindset, and try to narrow down everything that you have to say to a very action-oriented, option-oriented version of your content. Therefore, it must be concise. It should be visual, right? Because that usually helps with processing information if you visualize the information. And it should be very much accurate, but simplified. And that's very, very important. They usually only have little time. In top management, they have to prioritize. And if they don't get the value of it right away, then you're already off. So that's what you should think of. What's in it for them? How can they benefit with your idea? How can they save money, do something quicker, with more ease? And focus on that.
Okay, yeah, that helps. And maybe we can talk about that in a few weeks to see how this worked out. That's super interesting. But let's switch perspectives there and not talking about top management. Let's pick up employees. So as I learned, the biggest challenge of all the people providing process management to an organization out there is that processes are often perceived as something really boring, not very exciting. What are your ideas? What would you recommend on how to proceed to inspire people? So employees working in processes for a specific business process or a process in general.
Yeah, maybe we can use our example for that, Mirko, of our joint collaboration we had a couple of years ago with ProX at Lufthansa Technik or Deutsche Lufthansa in general. Maybe you could provide us with a bit of background around the project and why you decided to then ask me to jump in and support.
Yeah, that's super interesting. As I remember, we just, I knew you already from another project where we pitched something to our board and that was super exciting. And I thought maybe we could ask Ole to get some ideas on how to communicate what we are going to do here. And we invited you to Hamburg and we explained you the situation, which was basically like we were setting up a new excellence process for the whole Lufthansa group. So the design was already there and we had some ideas, some pictures how this process looked like. For sure, we also mapped the process, very detailed. And now the question was, how can we roll it out? How do we tell it to the people? And I still remember us standing there in that meeting room and putting sticky notes onto the wall. And we ended up with something really big, I would say, which was then called the pizza game. And that was how it all started, just from my perspective. So what about you, Ole? What do you remember?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I understood that the challenge was that you came up with this new process management system, ProX, and you were asked that all 140,000 employees at that time should work with that new system. And then we thought of, okay, how can we communicate the value of that new system to 140,000 people? And for sure, in an email or just a message in the intranet wouldn't work. Also, just to put some flyers at the cafeteria wouldn't work, right? Because we were about to change the entire operational system of a globally operating company, right? It couldn't be more complicated to me now that I think about it. Yeah. And you had this great idea on mind, which had a lot of value, and we understood it because we took ourselves the time to really go through it. But you already had one approach where you tried to communicate the value of the new system to 400 architect or process architects, process professionals
architects, right,
within the company, right? And it was very hard to convince them. And so you approached me, you said, we have a second chance, we have a second trial, we have 2 days with them. So how can we make them see the value in it? And I remember that my first thought was, how can we make the value experienceable for them, right? So how can they see the value of it right away in that moment? And usually also in learning theory, if we only see something, let's say a process flow chart on the wall, and someone talks about it, it's very hard to understand the real meaning of it. And so we co-developed that idea that we need to let the people in the room, like 400 people in Frankfurt in the convention center, we need to let them experience the real value of the process. And I remember that we thought we need to somewhat build up ambassadors for this value. So we decided to build this board game, which I think at the beginning was building paper planes, and then going through your entire process that you have developed through the process. And then at the end, we ended up with the pizza game, which came more handy. And we developed an entire game, right, with a story around it. And then we developed the board game even further. We played through it a couple of times until we understood, yes, it works. And it works with all the KPIs, which are also relevant for a globally operating flight company, right? So once we had that and we had the story and we designed everything with nice graphics, we've then been to Frankfurt to the convention center. We knew we had 400 people. We designed the entire 2 days in ways so that in smaller groups, these people could experience the value. And what did we do? We said, okay, they are all now in a fictional scenario, working in a pizzeria. And now they must use the ProX process to produce the most reliable, highest quality, fastest results in that pizzeria. And then I understood we had like 18 different groups, like 400 people in 18 groups. And we explained them the entire game. And we had this fictional character, Nonna, and she was in Italy and had this wonderful recipe for the pizza. And now we then created this scenario where she built up the company in the 60s. And then because of the great quality, they were having more and more franchise companies within Italy. But they had different quality levels within their nodes. And then competition from the outside entered the Italian market. So competition was fierce and they needed to level up. They needed to come back to the best possible outcome, the best possible results. So they needed to follow the one-on-one recipe from Nonna, right? So that was more or less the idea. And then we said, okay, we have 17 or 18 different pizzerias now here competing for the best process. And after we created this fictional scenario, and I think they must have been really like, that was so strange. I remember standing on stage and they were looking at all the characters and all the roles and so on. But they started then working into it. They went into their workshop rooms. They produced the first pizzas. And of our team, everyone was measuring the result. And I thought that was really amazing. So we had all the real KPIs at hand. What did we do? We then put everything into the presentation. We got them back into the big convention room, 400 people, and we put the results onto the screen. And we saw difference in quality and output, right? So one were super good, some others were really bad, and there was great variation. And so we said, okay, now you have gone through it for the first time. Now please go all back. Do what you're best at, design processes to improve the outcome. So they all went back to their workshop rooms. They worked on their process design. They again came back to the convention room. And now we saw that some got even better. Some improved a little bit, but everyone was slightly better, but not really to that point that we would have the same quality everywhere. So then I really liked that idea. You, Mirko, and your team, you were harvesting the best practices from all the teams, right? Who has done what in the process design to really make the process better? And I still remember the night session that we had.
Exactly. Yeah.
That was really funny. Maybe you want to talk about that.
Yeah, so in the I would say at night we brought together a representative of each and every pizza place, the process managers, so fighting for their local process and bringing in the ideas they developed in their workshops, and we tried to standardize that, so to create a best practice process, which was really a night shift, I would say. Unfortunately, we missed the party, and next morning we introduced the new process, including some pretty cool tools they developed, to the whole audience there. And they all went back to their local pizza places and produced pizza based on this best practice process.
Yeah. And then the result was amazing. When they came back to this room, 400 people from all over the world who were there in Frankfurt, who played a fictional pizza game and who really took it very seriously at that point, right? That was also funny. At the beginning, they were like, what do they want from us? But then they bought into it. And they come into that room and we put on the results and they were outstanding. Everyone was producing the best possible results. And that moment, I still get goosebumps now that we talk about it. And they understood the value of it. They said, whoa, that's amazing. We have to exactly do it like this. And then we said, yes, it doesn't matter whether you're talking about an onboarding process in Adelaide or Amsterdam. You need to have one process owner, and you don't have to redevelop everything. If you once have the perfect process for the onboarding of a specific airplane type, you better stick to it. And then you can reproduce it all over the world. So, and I think this is where it hit home for the people. And that's what I meant with let them experience the value, because from that moment onward, they became our ambassadors. And I know that we have developed the cardboard in a way that we can easily reproduce it. And then every team lead could take that back home to wherever they came from all over the world. And they could replay that together with their team. They could educate them how to do it. They could then again play it with their teams. And this is how it dribbles down to the entire organization. And I understood and remembered that this was really very important. So making processes and their value experienceable, I mean, really physically experienceable, is the key so that people can start working on their behalf. If they get only a technical chart, it's very hard for them to experience it.
Yeah, so true. And I still remember that a year after we had these events, people approached us and asked, can we have the game? We want to play it with our team. It's not that much fun to do it in a smaller group, but they could still experience how the process really worked out in the end. And that was great. So yeah, wow, that was a good time.
So now that we think about it, Mirko, because you asked me upfront what do I do? And I said, yes, brand design, and I support startups with investors, communication. I support CEOs with their keynote design and so on and so forth. This is what I really like. But what, for me, the biggest challenge and most fun always is to take super complex, hard to understand topics and make them understandable. And that really is important for everything that I do. So this project, this ProX project, to me still was the most fun project I've ever done in my entire life, because it was the hardest nut to crack. It was such a hard nut to crack, and the challenge couldn't be bigger than to change the operational system of an entire globally operating company. It can't be any harder. And this is what I like most. Unfortunately, not a lot of companies even understand that they need to work on their process design, and that this could be something that would help them to really leverage more their potential.
Yeah, definitely. And for me, it was also an amazing experience. And I still remember what we did there and how we did it. And I would love to bring this spirit to other companies as well. So if there are people out there listening to what we just talked about and they are interested in that, maybe we can even think about how to push it even further, to create something new like that again. So that's cool. Yeah.
Wow. No, for sure. And I think, as you said, we brought it to a very good point, I think. And we brought it to a or to a point of repeatability, right? So,
Yeah.
and that's to me where you need to bring it in. It needs to be so well designed that you can repeat it over and over again with the desired outcome, right? That's to me there it needs to be. And only if you have achieved that point, you know that the process is there. But still, I thought that, yeah, of course, what we have done, we brought it to a very great level. We could push it even further. For sure, we could push it further. But to make it even more experienceable and using digital layers and so on and so forth, we didn't have the time to do that and not the mandate, but for sure, there is still room to push it further.
Yeah. Wow, that's super cool. Thanks, Ole, for all these insights, also from your perspective on how we did that at that time. So that's super interesting. And I still remember us standing on stage and introducing the game to the people. That was awesome. Cool.
Yeah, and also one more thing maybe, what was important. I thought we had these kind of gamification elements within.
Mm-hmm.
And we always pushed it one step further, so that we pushed the people through this gaming process so that they experienced and understood better. That's it. And then whenever they have reached a certain point in their understanding, we brought them the theoretical input, right? So about roads, the necessity of roads in that process design, or other things around the KPIs. But whenever they have reached that specific level, we brought them the theoretical input. And this again helped them to connect their emotional experience with these patterns, these theoretical patterns. And then the combination of both is what is so powerful, right? If it's only emotional, it's not repeatable. If it's only theoretical, it's not experienceable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So even a dry topic like processes can be super exciting for people.
Yeah, maybe we need to convince them that this is a thing. And I didn't know I was such a nerd around processes before really I met you at Lufthansa Technik, knowing that you were even worse. But what I like is, so if you understand that everything is a creative process, right? And creativity and human experience can only be scaled if you use the right processes, just as I described at the beginning with the process of the Minion ride, the theme park, Universal Studios. Yeah, right? So it's an emotional human experience. It's entertainment, of course, but it's an experience that you go through. And because of the process, it's scalable. And this is what I like. I mean, if you look at so it's very American, I think. It's very, very American. If you look at all the franchise fast food companies like McDonald's, other companies, it's always about that process, right? They know exactly what degree the fat has to have for the thickness of the burger patty, how long you have to put it into the fat in order to produce it as efficiently as possible. I think they are really good in that. But Lufthansa Technik is even better because it's high-risk environment, right? So you must be really able to detach an entire, let's say, Boeing 737, overhaul it, and then reattach it in the right way, not forgetting one screw. And it needs to fly again with hundreds, not thousands of people in the most dangerous circumstances. And this, to me, is the grand mastery of process design and process capability.
So summing that up, what are your top recommendations to our listeners on how to rethink processes? What is your key message there?
Yeah. So as I said, everything is a creative process. No matter you are designing your garden, you are overhauling an airplane, you are working on the financials of your company, to me, everything is a creative process. And creative processes also follow specific steps. As I said, from chaos to order, it's always the same. And you follow an emotional journey with all of that, right? Chaos usually puts us in a place of fear because we think, maybe this time we do not know what to do, or you might start thinking about your own capabilities. Am I good enough? And so on. These are all the things that usually happen at the beginning of a creative process. But if you push through these emotions and you understand that your insecurities are only an indicator for your own carefulness of how good something needs to be designed, and that you understand you need to push it further until you feel secure. You want to get beyond that point of fear, to feel that security and even maybe boredom at the end, once you have that perfect process at place. So the emotional journey is always the same. Push through it until you feel the security, and take your own fear as an indicator that the process is not designed well enough. And maybe a good book recommendation also, which I really like about creativity and processes, is from Canadian management professor Roger Martin, The Design of Business. It's a really, really great book. It talks especially about the creative process and how the design mindset can help you to create great user experiences through process design.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thank you also for this recommendation. That's super interesting. So where can our learners, our listeners go to if they would like to learn more about what you are doing?
So, of course, my homepage, tillmann.com, then peakberlin.com. And then, I give classes, I teach people what I do, support them with their concept design. So this is one thing, so they can directly approach me. And if there is interest in my topic, you can buy my book, Agile Presentation Design, An Innovator's Guide to More Impactful Presentations, and you can find that on Amazon. And this is just a process, Mirko, and it describes everything that we were talking about. And I think, so my approach with that book was to contribute something to the global design community. So this is also why I put so much effort into the design, not only the process design, but also the visual design. And I think that the real impact this book can have in helping people to structure their thinking and being able to communicate their innovative ideas with more impact. The real impact has not even developed yet. So I think it still has a lot potential to support people approaching knowledge design or presentation design in a fundamentally different way.
Yeah, I fully agree. And I ordered your book on the day you communicated that it's coming out, and it's still here lying next to my desk. And I look into it from time to time to get some inspirations. And there is no other book. It's just your book lying here at my table, because I really hate reading books. But this is a format which I love to read. So I can definitely support your recommendation there to have a look at.
Let me share one last thought maybe about creativity and processes, right? So when I've designed this book, I thought I want to write a book which has the knowledge depth of a real book, right? So if you read a management book, whatever topic, but usually they are really deep in information and you have to digest it and go back to it over and over again. So I said, I want to have this kind of depth. But on the other hand, I want to have the readability of a magazine. So I worked with two metaphors, right? So book and magazine. Later on, I merged it as a working title into MacBook, so magazine book. So then I tried to understand how a book works, right? So of course, it's the structure. If you look into the content overview at the beginning, it's the structure. Okay, I thought, I need to have a very clear structure. It's very important. But then I looked at magazines and I thought, why do they work so well? Why do I like the lightness they provide? And then I wanted to understand how magazines work. And I sent my former employee Kilian to the Berliner Hauptbahnhof, to the railway station, to the newspaper store, and I asked him, buy only the most beautiful magazines that you can find. So he brought them back, 5 or 6 of them, and then we cut them And then we brought them to the wall, right, to get an overview of the thing. And then we understood the ingredients. When I said, oh, a magazine is all about images, I understood, oh, I need to have good images. So I hired a photographer for every workshop, for everything that we did, for all the content. So throughout the entire book, you have the same image style, and everything is very visual. Then I understood you need to have great illustrations. So we hired the best illustrator. But what I saw in the most magazines was that there was different styles of illustrations throughout the entire magazine, because the different editors maybe contributed with different illustrators they hired. But I said I want to have a consistent feeling with the same illustration style. So we hired with Christopher De Lorenzo, one of the world's famous illustrators. So he worked for New York Times, for Times Magazine, and so on. So really top notch. And again, my approach was I want to contribute something to the international design community. So at the end, we brought these two concepts of the book and the magazine together. And this is how then the readability and the depth then came together. But again, it's a process, right? And metaphors, you can work with metaphors in order to inform your process and your decision-making alongside that process. So this is actually, now that we talk about it, the combination of creativity and process thinking is what really, really drives me.
Yeah, and I'm really surprised that for me, it was just a pretty cool book. Yeah, with cool methods in it, which can I look into from time to time to get some ideas and guidance on how to do it. Yeah, but I would say you completely reinvented the process of writing a book with what you just explained. That's just super exciting to hear what you did there, and that shows what you're all doing, even when you're just writing a book.
Yeah, but I did not only write the book. I also designed the entire book together with Axel Lauer, my co-designer, and we did that together. Axel did a lot of great work for the Wired magazine before, and we became a team, the creative design team in that whole thing. And we also published the book. Right, so I didn't work with a publisher, but I said I want to have the entire creative freedom. I want to do it myself. So I found out how to publish it, how to get an ISBN number, how to get it on Amazon, how to get it listed, and so on. And this is, I try to understand everything in the entire process, and now it's there, and I really love it. It works on my behalf, and I'm happy that you like it. And funny enough, I have a lot of people who told me, Ole, I still have it on my desk. And now when I think back at the product vision I thought, so I was in Los Angeles a couple of years ago, and you see I'm very Americanophile or Anglophile. We've been to Abbot Kinney, which is like the coolest street in Los Angeles, right? All the cool coffee shops there and jeans stores and so on. And also concept stores. In a concept store, the features of a concept store is you can not only buy clothes, for example, but also nice candles or card games or just beautiful items. And I thought whenever I write a book, I want it to be so pretty that it lies in such a concept store. And then if people see it, even if they don't understand the topic, they just buy it and they have it at home, putting it somewhere so that it provides happiness with the design. This is exactly what was happening, right? So people now have it and they just don't want to give it away. To me, it's also the same. Every time I look at it, and I think Axel really did a great job here, I think, oh, it's so pretty. It's so pretty still. And I think in 20 years or 30 years, it still will look pretty because it's timeless.
Yeah, definitely. And you just have to buy that book, because looking at the cover, and now you're here and we're talking about that, I have to ask a question, because there is this hole on the cover, a circle where you can see the green behind and it's shining somehow. What's the idea behind that?
So it's about getting your ideas to the point, right? And you see that it has this kind of halo, right? And it seems like the idea is not really clear at that moment. If you then take the cover and take it off, you will see a solid circle. So this is the entire creative process of something which is not clear at the beginning and bringing it really to the solid point. So from vague to solid. And that's the idea of the cover.
Super cool.
It's a process again, right?
Yeah, definitely. Wow. Ole, I love that. Thank you so much. Is there anything we've missed? I guess a lot, but with regards to new process or rethinking processes?
No, just one thing I would like to say to you. I'm really grateful that you gave me the opportunity with, first of all, talking to you now today, but also earlier in the ProX process to bring me into that and then to co-design it together with you, bringing in everything that you had and everything that I had together with our teams, and then collaboratively design this entire project. I really enjoyed that, and it really brought my understanding of what I am capable of delivering into the business world. It really changed my self-perception, and to me, everything is like a puzzle since then. And I understand that you just need to think through it over and over and over again until you've find the right pattern, the right structure, the right process. And I would love to do more of these kind of projects for sure. I really liked it.
Yeah, cool. Let's do that, I would say. Yeah. Looking forward to that as well. So, I don't know if you realized that we already landed. We are at our final destination. So, how would you describe your flight experience of this episode with just 3 words?
Lovely, insightful, and floating.
Perfect. Great. So, Ole, thank you so much for being at the New Process podcast, and looking forward to collaborating with you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Let's recap today's New Process inspiration.
Yeah, what a flight. I hope you enjoyed the interview with Ole as much as I did. And let's sum it up, what we just heard. So it was all about pitching good ideas to different target groups, I would say. And I asked him in the beginning, for the secret ingredients of a perfect pitch. And he told us that this is having a good product vision. So what is the product all about? To be able to explain the big picture. Why is it important? Why now? Who is the user? What is the user experience? And then visualize this. He came up with the Lilium example, which I think is very great. If you haven't seen that, have a look into the show notes to look it up. And then create a story, a narrative out of this product vision to build your perfect pitch on this. So that's super interesting. And then he told us about the process of how to generate a perfect pitch presentation. And there it's basically a cycle you are going through. So first, go into brainstorming, open up in a divergent phase, and create as many ideas as possible, and then boil it down in a convergent phase and reduce it, and do rapid prototyping, like with regards to a presentation there. Put the different slides you would like to put into the presentation as a storyboard by using sticky notes onto a wall. Yeah, so to have a first idea, and then let it go. So go to bed, take a nap, or do something completely different to let the ideas work in the back of your mind while you're doing something else. And then add all these ideas in another phase of brainstorming to the storyboard that you already have on the wall. So improve the storyboard, the story you would like to tell, and then again boil it down. So it's more or less a cycle, a process. That's so great. And this can be used not only to pitch business ideas or process to different stakeholders, can be used for all the presentations that you are doing in your professional life. So that was super interesting for me to understand that this is a real process behind doing it like that. Yeah, then we talked about how to pitch processes to top management, because this is often a big question. How can we convince our top management or just higher level managers in the organization to use or to apply process management? Because for sure, I believe that it definitely makes sense, and there is no alternative to managing your processes in a professional way. But now the question is, how can we put that into a pitch presentation? And there he told us to, design the story from the perspective of the listener, to get into the heads of your top management, to understand how they are thinking, and use their frameworks and their mindsets, take that into account, and then put everything into an action-oriented version of your content. So should be concise, visual, simplified, to get the value out of it right away, and to tell the top management what's in it for them, so that they can, based on this, then quickly make a decision. So that was his recommendation on how to pitch processes or business process management to top management. Yeah, and then we really deep dived into this case, the pizza game, to answer or to give an example, I would say, on how to inspire people for processes. And there, I don't want to go into all the details again. I just want to point out that making processes and their value experienceable, that's the most important aspect I take out of this story from the interview. So make it physically experienceable for the people, how they can apply processes and what the benefit for them is. So like we did it with the pizza game in the example here, we made it to inspire the people and to create ambassadors for process management. And then they took that idea into their organization and they told the colleagues about it. And so that was there, the core. And he also added, not just only make it physically experienceable, but also add theoretical input there. So to combine both emotions based on practical experience on the one hand side, as well as theoretical input or theoretical experiences on the other side, to make it repeatable. So that's the idea, to inspire people for processes. And if you would like to learn more about this game, feel free to contact Ole or myself, and would be great if you are interested in that, to push it to the next level and to go even further, as Ole said, with digital tools we could take into account and so on. So that would be super interesting, and then we can share the results here again later on. Yeah, and then finally, I really can recommend his book that he wrote there, and it's true. It's lying here next to my desk already for about 2 years, I think. That's when it came out, and I'll look into it from time to time just to get new inspirations on how to create a perfect presentation. So I'll put all the links, also the ones that Ole mentioned in the interview, into the show notes. So have a look there. And good luck, have fun, enjoy to pitch your process to the people out there, to bring it to the next level. Thank you very much for listening. Have a great day. Bye-bye and auf Wiedersehen.
You've been listening to the New Process Podcast. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode for more tools, methods, and best practices to rethink your process and push it to the next level. Thank you for listening.
And before you leave, it would be so great if you quickly think about who of your friends or colleagues would be interested in the New Process Podcast, and then send them a message and direct them to newprocesslab.com/podcast. I think that's the easiest way. So thank you very much, and bye-bye.